Hi to everybody. In this video, we are going to talk about a topic that affects all of us, even when we don't realize it, the impact of our everyday choices on the environment. More and more consumers want to live, to buy and to travel in a more sustainable way, but in a world full of green claims and eco-friendly logos. How can we distinguish between marketing and the real commitment of enterprises? This is where the European Union Ecolabel comes in. The European Union Ecolabel is the official environmental label of the European Union, awarded to products and services that meet high environmental standards throughout their life cycle. The video you are about to watch explores exactly this, what the European Union Ecolabel is, how it works, and why it represents a concrete and credible tool for promoting sustainability across different sectors. The European Ecolabel certification is a voluntary certification scheme designed to support consumers make informed choices while encouraging businesses to improve their environmental performance. It is not a self-declared label, but it is based on rigorous science-based criteria defined at European level. These criteria consider the entire life cycle of a product or of a services, from raw materials, energy consumption, emissions, waste management, and overall environmental impact. But what does this mean in practice? In this video, we will first look at how the European Union Ecolabel applies to several sectors, but then we will focus on the tourism sector, that is the key sector in this course. And we know that tourism sector is a key sector for the European economy, and it faces significant environmental challenges. Tourism activities, in fact, can involve high energy, water consumption, waste production, and really important, it can affect the local ecosystems and the quality of life of local communities. For these reasons, the European Union Ecolabel has been extended also to tourism services, in detail to tourist accommodation services, offering a clear and transparent framework for hotel, guest houses, campsites, and other tourism hospitality providers. You will learn when the European Ecolabel for Tourism was introduced, who it applies to, and why it matters. Importantly, obtaining the certification is not just about improving the company's image, but it required a really complex and strategic process, reducing resource consumption, improving energy efficiency, minimizing waste, and actively engaging also guests and the staff in a responsible behavior. To make this more tangible, the video also presents two best practices, two examples of accommodation providers that have successfully obtained the European Union Ecolabel in the last years. The first case is Casa Maurus. It is a small Italian accommodation who obtained the European Ecolabel certification last year, but its journey began much earlier. The process started with defining clear, sustainable objectives, analyzing the distinctive resources and strengths of the accommodation, and also identifying the European Union Ecolabel criteria most relevant for the structure. Rather than seeing certification as a simple checklist, Casa Maurus it as a strategic opportunity to formalize its environmental commitment, improve their operational practices, and communicate its sustainability commitment in a transparent and credible way. The second case is a German case, and it is related to the campsite by Eiermann family. This eco-camping business demonstrates how sustainability and hospitality can really be sustainable, and how the European Union Ecolabel certification can be really important to express the long-term commitment in preserving nature while managing a tourism business in a sustainable and efficient way. The approach by Eiermann's family shows that respecting the environment is fully compatible with providing comfort and quality services to guests. They see certification as a shared responsibility, ensuring that staff, guests, and management all understand their role in responsible tourism. At the same time, they continuously look for ways to improve operational efficiency and enhance the visitor experience. These case studies highlight a key message. Sustainability in tourism is not an abstract concept, but it is a concrete process that involves planning, investment, innovation, and a clear strategic vision, and of course, environmental commitment. The European Union Ecolabel becomes more than just a logo, but it is a framework for company transformation. As you watch this video, I invite you to reflect on how environmental certifications can contribute to a more sustainable, responsible, and future-oriented tourism sector. Because behind every certification label, there are real decisions, real efforts, a real commitment to protecting our shared environment, both for us, for today's travelers, but also for the future generation. Enjoy the video.
You know how it is. You walk down the aisle and you see all these labels screaming at you, eco-friendly, natural, green. But which ones actually mean something? Which ones are just marketing? Well, today we're going to cut through all that noise and get to the bottom of one of the biggest, most legit eco-labels out there, the EU Ecolabel.
I'm willing to bet you've seen this logo before. It's that little flower made of the EU stars. Maybe you saw it on a cleaning product, or a ream of paper, or even when you were booking a hotel. It definitely looks official, but what is it really telling you? What's the story behind the flower? Okay, so here's the bottom line. This is the real deal. It's the European Union's official seal of approval for products and services that meet some seriously high environmental standards. And we're not just talking about the finished product, we're talking about its entire life cycle, from the moment the raw materials are pulled from the earth to how it's made, distributed, and eventually disposed of. It's a genuine signpost for excellence.
So you might be thinking this is for a few niche specialty products, right? Well, let's get into the numbers, because the sheer scale of this program is probably going to surprise you a lot. Yeah, that's not a typo. We are talking about over 109,000 individual products and services that have officially earned the right to wear this flower logo. That is just a massive number of verified green choices out there for all of us.
And what's even more interesting is that all of those 109,000 products are covered by just under 3,400 licenses. So a single company can get one license that covers a whole range of their products. You know, think of a paint company getting one license for dozens of different colors. It shows that these companies aren't just testing the waters. They're really committing whole product lines to these higher standards.
Okay, so with over 100,000 products out there, what are they? Where are we most likely to actually find this label when we're shopping? Let's break it down. So, a few categories clearly dominate here. Paints and varnishes. I mean, wow, they make up a massive 35% of all Ecolabel products. And right behind that, you've got stuff we use every single day. Tissue paper, textiles, and hard surface cleaners. You add those top four up, and you're looking at over 70% of all the products with the label.
But it doesn't stop there. Not even close. The label's reach extends into some really surprising areas. You can book a stay at an Ecolabel certified hotel, you can buy a certified mattress, use certified shampoo. Heck, you can even find it on things like industrial lubricants and electronic equipment. It's pretty clear that sustainability is going mainstream in just about every industry you can think of.
So this program is already huge, but here's the thing. It's not a static picture. It's growing, and it's growing really, really fast. The data shows a very clear trend, and it's pointing straight up. The momentum here is just undeniable. Get this. In just a single 6-month period, the number of Ecolabel products jumped by 7%. That's almost 7,000 new products in half a year. This isn't just a slow and steady climb. It's a serious acceleration. And if you dig into where that growth is coming from, some really cool trends pop out. The service industry is just exploding. Tourist accommodations are leading the way, adding 64 new licenses in just 6 months. And right behind them, you've got indoor cleaning services, furniture, and even those industrial lubricants we mentioned earlier.
So we know what's growing and how fast, but who's actually making it all happen? Let's take a look at the countries and, maybe more importantly, the companies that are driving this change.
At the national level, a few key players are really pushing things forward. France, Germany, Italy, and Spain are the clear powerhouses here. They're awarding the most licenses and certifying the most products by far. That probably points to strong consumer demand for green products in those countries, and maybe some supportive government policies too.
But now for what I think is the most surprising and frankly the coolest number of all, 57%. This number isn't a country, and it isn't a product category. It represents the businesses themselves.
That's right. That 57%, it's the small and medium-sized businesses. It's not just the corporate giants with huge sustainability departments. The majority of companies holding an EU Ecolabel license are smaller businesses. It's a fantastic sign that this green innovation is really a grassroots movement, happening at every level of the economy.
And this quote from the European Commission really just ties a perfect bow on the whole thing. They say that this growth shows a consistent interest from everybody, from the businesses making the stuff, the stores selling it, and of course from us, the consumers, who are looking for green options we can actually trust.
So the EU Ecolabel is way more than just a pretty logo, isn't it? It's the symbol of a real, verifiable green movement that's growing like crazy, and it's being driven by businesses of all shapes and sizes. So now that you know what it really stands for, the question is, the next time you're shopping, will you start looking for the flower?
Okay, let's talk about travel. We all love it, but there's often that little voice in the back of our heads wondering if we're doing it right. We're told to find eco-friendly hotels, but what does that even mean? Well, today, we're going to cut right through all that marketing noise and show you a simple, legit tool for truly sustainable travel.
You know, it seems like more and more of us are trying to travel with a conscience. We want our big adventures to leave a positive mark, not a heavy footprint on the places we love.
Of course, we want our trips to be memorable, but we also want them to be mindful. We want to enjoy these incredible destinations without, accidentally harming them. The real trick is figuring out which hotels are actually sustainable and which ones just say they are.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, you go online, and every single hotel seems to have a little green leaf icon next to its name. But eco-friendly could mean anything. It could just mean they ask you to reuse your towel, or it could be a deep, real commitment. So how do you tell the difference? Well, believe it or not, there's a surprisingly simple and really powerful answer. It's called the EU Ecolabel, and it's pretty much designed to be the ultimate trustworthy guide for travelers just like us. So let's be clear. This is not just another random sticker. The EU Ecolabel is the official stamp of approval from the European Union for environmental excellence. When you see this on a hotel or a campsite, you know it's met some of the absolute highest sustainability standards out there. And this little label is part of a much bigger plan. It's a key piece of Europe's mission to be climate neutral by 2050 and to build a circular economy. That's just a way of saying an economy where we waste less and reuse a lot more. So it really pushes businesses to get innovative for a greener future.
Okay, so what does a hotel actually have to do to earn this thing? Let's take a peek behind that flower logo because the process is, well, pretty intense.
Get this number in your head. 22. That's how many mandatory things a hotel or campsite has to do just to be in the running. And these aren't suggestions, they are non-negotiable requirements that cover everything from energy use to waste management.
But wait, there's more. On top of those 22 mandatory rules, they have to go the extra mile. they need to rack up at least 20 more points from a list of optional good deeds, just to prove they're really committed and not just doing the bare minimum. So what does this look like in real life? Well, we're talking about the smart stuff, using electricity from renewable sources, having energy-efficient lights and appliances, smart thermostats, water-saving taps and showers, and yeah, that simple but super effective policy of not changing your sheets and towels every day unless you ask. It's a whole system.
And then there's the other side of the coin, waste. Say goodbye to all those tiny plastic jam packets at the breakfast buffet, or those little disposable shampoo bottles. Ecolabel spots have to cut that stuff out, provide easy ways for you to recycle, and even have a documented plan to reduce food waste. It's all about making less trash to begin with.
And here's the kicker, something the EU itself points out. Being green is actually smart business. When a hotel uses less energy, less water, and creates less waste, well, they save a lot of money. It's a true win-win situation.
But honestly, the impact goes way beyond just managing resources. Choosing an Ecolabel hotel actually makes your whole experience as a guest even better.
Let's just compare for a second. At a conventional hotel, you might find a bathroom full of single-use plastics and maybe not much thought put into energy use. But at an EU Ecolabel hotel, you get a smarter, cleaner stay. We're talking less waste, efficient heating and lights, and they'll even give you info on great local food or how to get around with bikes or public transit. It's just a higher quality stay, period.
Now here's a fact that might actually surprise you. The EU Ecolabel isn't just for Europe. Any hotel or campsite anywhere in the world can apply for and earn this label as long as they cater to European tourists. This gives it a huge global impact.
So you're probably wondering, okay, this is great. How do I actually use this information? Well, the good news is, it couldn't be simpler. This is all you need to look for, the flower logo. Whenever you're browsing booking sites or looking at hotel websites, just keep an eye out for this little symbol. It's your guarantee. Your shortcut to knowing a place has been vetted and approved by the European Union.
And really, your choice has power. By booking a stay at a place with the EU Ecolabel, you're directly supporting businesses that are taking sustainability seriously. You're basically voting with your wallet for a greener, healthier way to travel.
So remember, every booking is a choice. Your vacation can be a real force for good. The only question left is, where will you take your conscious travel commitment?
You know, what happens when a small business decides to chase a goal that just seems massive, almost impossible? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating story just like that. It's all about ambition, sustainability, and, some really surprising discoveries along the way.
So, yeah, how does a tiny family-run business pull off a world-class environmental goal? It's a classic underdog story, right? But with this really cool, modern, eco-friendly twist. And it shows how sometimes, the things you think are holding you back, they can actually turn out to be your biggest strengths.
So let's meet our hero. It's a place called Casa Vacanze Marus, a family-run holiday home over in Italy. And we're going to follow their big quest, which took place over one single but pretty transformative year.
Okay, so let's set the stage here. This wasn't just some casual goal they set for themselves. No, this was a challenge that was going to push a small operation like theirs right to its limits.
And this slide really gets to the heart of the challenge. On one side, you've got this huge ambition, getting the EU Ecolabel certification. That's a major badge of honor for environmental excellence. But then, on the other side, you've got the reality. They're a micro-enterprise. That means limited staff, not a lot of extra money, and definitely not a lot of spare time. It's a total David and Goliath situation. And look, this was not some quick weekend project. Their quest kicked off in February 2023. They had to work on it all through their busiest time, the summer season. They even got their guests involved. And then, exactly 1 year later, February 2024, that's when they finally submitted the application. We're talking a full year of nonstop, dedicated effort.
So the big question is, how did they pull it off? Well, they didn't just wing it, that's for sure. Nope. They had a very specific playbook they followed to tackle this whole thing. First things first, let's talk about what they were even chasing. The EU Ecolabel. I mean, it's not just a sticker you put on your window. It is a super prestigious certification. It's given to products and services that meet some of the highest environmental standards out there. In the world of tourism, getting this, it's a really, really big deal.
Okay, so this was their roadmap to get there. It all started with training and education, just getting the whole family up to speed on eco-management stuff. Then they took a really deep dive into all the criteria. I mean, they had to know it inside and out.
The next step was super crucial, a gap analysis. That's basically just a fancy way of saying they figured out where they were versus where they needed to be. And once they knew those gaps, well, it was all about action, making changes, documenting every single thing they did, and then finally pulling it all together for the final submission. Super methodical, right?
But this is where the story takes a really interesting turn. Because the things they were most worried about, the things they thought were their biggest weaknesses, well, it turns out they weren't weaknesses at all.
So going into this, they had two huge fears. And honestly, I think any small business owner can relate to these. First, just not having enough people, not enough hands on deck for such a complicated project. And second, that big, scary risk of finding out you need to spend a ton of money on huge, expensive upgrades. That's a terrifying thought.
But here's the twist. This is where the story completely flips. It turns out those weaknesses were actually hiding some incredible assets. For one, the family was already super passionate about being eco-friendly. Plus, get this, their location is near an archaeological site, which meant they were already subject to really strict local environmental laws. And on top of that, their guests, the people staying there, expected them to be sustainable. So you see, these weren't obstacles. They were the foundations they could build on. That was the big aha moment for them. Suddenly, all those strict rules and high expectations from guests, they didn't feel like burdens anymore. They were actually a head start. It turns out they were already doing a lot of the right things. They just hadn't put it all together in a conscious, systematic way yet. And this, I think, is maybe the most important part of their whole story. They realized that the real reward wasn't just getting that label to put on the door. No, it was the deep, fundamental change that happened inside the business itself. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Environmental rules stopped feeling like an imposition and started feeling like our conscious system. I mean, wow. It's that shift from just following the rules because you have to making it part of who you are. It's the difference between simple compliance and real, genuine commitment. So, you see, the true reward was so much more than a logo. It was gaining this deep awareness of their own environmental impact. It was getting a rock-solid understanding of the laws, and it was developing this whole new conscious way of operating. The process, the journey itself, became the most powerful training they could have ever asked for. And that's why this story is so great. Because it's not just about one small business anymore. It's become a blueprint, a model that could inspire so many others. I mean, just look at the ripple effect. If you're a small business owner, the payoff is massive. You get to boost your international image. You actually give yourself legal protection because you're way ahead of the regulations. You start attracting that growing crowd of eco-conscious travelers, and you even improve your relationship with your local community. These aren't just feel-good things. They are real, tangible wins for your business. So by taking on this huge challenge and, importantly, documenting how they did it, Casa Vacanze Marus did more than just improve their own business. They've basically created a roadmap that other small, family-run places can now pick up and follow to find their own path to sustainable success. And that really brings us to the final question, and maybe the most important one. This whole story proves that a massive challenge can unlock potential you never even knew you had. So it makes you wonder, right? What about your own business or even your own life? What are the things you think are holding you back right now that might actually be your greatest advantages, just waiting to be... Okay, let's talk about camping. But I want you to forget everything you think you know about it. Seriously. The days of just, roughing it are kind of over. Today, we are diving into a whole new era of eco-camping, where being sustainable and being comfortable actually go hand in hand. It's a game changer. I mean, think about it. The modern camper has totally evolved. People just aren't satisfied with sagging tents and, let's be honest, questionable facilities anymore. What they want now is comfort, real hospitality, and a deep, genuine respect for nature. And this shift, it's completely reshaping the entire camping world. And this isn't some small niche trend we're talking about. Nope, this is a full-blown global movement. And the numbers? Well, they absolutely prove it. So let's get into the booming demand for sustainable travel. Get this, 14.3% annual growth. Let that sink in for a second. That is not a trend, my friends. That is a revolution. Ecotourism isn't just a little corner of the market anymore. It is very quickly becoming the future of how we travel. It's gotten so big that even the United Nations is paying close attention.
They're looking at all the recent global challenges and not seeing a setback, but a massive opportunity, a chance to completely transform how tourism relates to nature, to the climate, and to the economy as a whole.
So all this big picture talk is great, but what does this transformation actually look like on the ground, in the real world? Well, to find out, we're going to take a little trip to Germany's Black Forest and meet a family that's been leading this charge for decades.
Welcome to Houghton Camping Königskonsul. It's this incredible family-run campsite, and they have been pioneers in eco-camping for over 20 years now. So they aren't just jumping on the bandwagon. These guys have been setting the standard for a long, long time.
Okay, so what exactly do we mean by eco-camping? It's really important to know this isn't just glamping, right? It's not about super fancy tents and Instagram-worthy views, though you might get those too. It is a philosophy that puts nature first, but, and this is key, it does it without giving up on comfort or, being a profitable business.
That all sounds fantastic, but how do they actually do it? Let's pull back the curtain and take a closer look at how this one campsite turns its amazing eco-philosophy into a real, tangible thing you can see and feel. Their commitment to sustainability, it's literally woven into every single part of their business. We're talking solar panels and better insulation to slash their carbon footprint, a restaurant that sources local food to support the community around them. Every decision is made with the planet in mind. And they don't just preach it, they get their guests involved, partnering with them to reduce waste together. And right there, that's the secret to their success. They make their guests part of the solution. It's not complicated, it's just clear communication, good signage, and by doing that, they empower every single visitor to be a partner in their mission. It's brilliant. Now, as you can imagine, this level of commitment has not gone unnoticed. They've earned one of the most prestigious eco-certifications in the entire world, the EU Ecolabel. But what does it actually take to get that coveted seal of approval? Let me tell you, the EU Ecolabel is no joke. It is the absolute gold standard for environmental excellence. The standards are incredibly high, and they're all independently verified. You need a dedicated eco-manager on site. You have to meticulously track your energy use, your CO2 output. This certification is the real deal. For the Ironman family, this eco-label is so much more than just a piece of paper or a logo on their website. It's a promise. It's their public promise to every guest that their commitment to being green is real, it's verified, and it's at the very heart of everything they do. But let's be real, we live in a world that's full of greenwashing, where companies make all of these fuzzy claims about their environmental practices. So how can you be sure a business's eco-claims are legit? Well, the Ironman family has a pretty solid answer for that. See, for them, it's not a branding exercise. It is an ethos. It's a core belief, a guiding principle that shapes every single decision they make, from the huge investments down to the tiny daily routines. It's really the difference between just talking the talk and truly walking the walk. So the big question is, does this deep, deep commitment to sustainability actually pay off? From a business perspective? The answer, well, it might just surprise you. It is a classic win-win. It's that simple. Guests get a more comfortable, more authentic experience out in nature. And the business? It enjoys greater efficiency and lower operating costs. I mean, think about it. That investment they made in solar collectors and better insulation didn't just shrink their carbon footprint, it seriously lowered their energy bills. That goes straight to the bottom line. It's a simple but really powerful equation. Sustainability equals success. By putting the planet first, they've created a better experience for their guests and a more profitable, more resilient business for themselves. Honestly, this isn't just a great model for camping, it's the future of tourism. So as we all start to rethink how we travel, it leaves us with a question. The next time you're planning a trip, just ask yourself, what small changes can I make to have a really big impact? Whether it's choosing an eco-certified hotel, just packing a reusable water bottle, or supporting local businesses, every little bit really does count. When you think about camping, what comes to mind? Leaky tents? Roughing it in the mud? Well, you might want to think again. The entire concept of camping is getting a serious green makeover. And trust me, it's about so much more than just a place to pitch a tent. Okay, let's get into it. But here's the thing. You see the word eco or green slapped on everything these days. So what does it really mean to be an eco campsite? That's the big question we're tackling today. How do you tell the difference between a genuine, deep-seated commitment to the planet and, just some clever marketing? And it's pretty wild how much our expectations have changed, right? We've totally moved on from that old stereotype of sagging tents and overflowing toilets. Now we want comfort, we want convenience, and we want a real, authentic respect for nature, all bundled into one experience. So, to really get a handle on what this looks like in the real world, we're going to zoom in on one specific place that's been walking the walk for years. It's called the Hohencamping Königskansel, and it's nestled right in Germany's stunning Black Forest. And listen, for these folks, this isn't some new fad they just jumped on. We're talking about the Eiermann family. They have been at the absolute forefront of this movement for decades. In fact, they were founding members of the German eco-camping network way back in 2002. These guys are the real deal. Okay, and this brings us to a really important distinction. Eco-camping is not the same thing as glamping. Glamping is all about luxury, glamorous camping. But eco-camping, that's a whole philosophy. It's about respecting nature and weaving sustainable practices into the very DNA of the business. And boy, is this idea catching on. I mean, check this out. The eco-tourism market is growing by an estimated 14.3% annually. That's huge. It was already a clear trend, and let's be honest, recent world events have only supercharged our desire to get out and connect with nature more responsibly. Right, so that all sounds great in theory. But how do they actually pull it off? Let's get into the nitty-gritty, their playbook, and see how this whole sustainability thing works in practice. Their strategy is really comprehensive, built on 4 main pillars. It kicks off with reducing waste and saving water. Then it moves to sourcing locally, gets into smart energy management, and finally, it's about actively boosting the biodiversity of the forest around them. All right, first up, waste. And this is cool because it's not just on the campsite to handle it. It's a team effort. They encourage guests to use reusable containers, and with super clear signs and communication, everybody gets involved in sorting what's left. It's a real collective thing. Next, let's talk about what they buy. The Eiermanns are incredibly intentional about sourcing their food and other products from local suppliers whenever they possibly can. This not only props up the regional economy, but also slashes the carbon footprint of their supplies. It just makes sense. And this is where their commitment to using smart tech really shines. They've invested in things like better insulation and seriously upgraded their solar game. They've got new collectors heating water for the showers in the pool, plus photovoltaics, the panels that turn sunlight straight into electricity, generating a huge chunk of their power. But here's what's really amazing. They're not just trying to do less harm, they're actively trying to do more good. They have a long-term tree planting program and manage the landscape in a way that actually nurtures the local ecosystem and helps the wildlife thrive. So you take all these actions and they add up to something pretty significant, something that can be officially recognized. And that brings us to this certification that proves it all, the EU Ecolabel. So what exactly is this thing? Well, simply put, the EU Ecolabel is the official stamp of approval from the European Union. It's awarded to products and services that meet really high, independently checked environmental standards across their entire life cycle. And let me tell you, getting one of these is no walk in the park. It's a serious commitment. You have to appoint a dedicated eco-manager, meet these super strict standards for everything from how much water you use to the chemicals in your cleaning supplies, and you have to keep detailed records of everything. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? For pioneers like the Eiermanns, this label isn't just a logo they can slap on their website for marketing. It's the outside world validating a belief system they hold on the inside. It's their entire ethos, made visible for everyone to see. So after all that effort, what's the payoff? Well, it creates this amazing positive cycle, what you could call a triple benefit, where literally everyone comes out on top. And you can see it right here. It's a win for the planet, obviously, because nature is being preserved. It's a win for the guests because they get a much more comfortable, more meaningful experience. And of course, it's a massive win for the business itself, making it more cost-efficient and stronger for the future. It really is a win-win-win. When you look at this whole model, this blend of responsibility, efficiency, and deep respect, it kind of leaves you with one big question, doesn't it? Is this just the future of camping? Or are we looking at a blueprint for the future of travel itself?